What the hell is that smell? Oh, it's you.
Greg Hendricks wrinkled his nose as Tanya mopped near the elevator.
Every morning, same stench. Same slow hands, same useless face.
Tanya kept mopping, eyes down, quiet.
Look at me when I'm talking to you. Look at me!
She looked up, calm, still.
Me! You disgust me! You know that! Everything about you disgusts me! You can't even hold this right! 3 months and you still mop like a damn animal!
He hurled the mop at her chest. It cracked against her collarbone. She stumbled. The lobby went silent. She steadied herself, straightened her uniform, and said nothing. But Greg had no idea the woman he'd just thrown the mop at like trash was hiding something. Something that would turn his world upside down. Ridgecrest Commerce Center. 12 floors of glass and steel in the heart of downtown. Law firms, accounting offices, a tech startup on the 9th floor, a medical billing company on the 6th. From the outside, polished, professional, prestigious. From the inside, a kingdom. And every kingdom has a king. His name was Greg Hendricks. 46 years old, building operations manager. Hired by Steel Point Property Group, the firm contracted to manage the building on behalf of the anonymous owner. Some LLC nobody had ever met. Greg didn't care. As far as he was concerned, this was his building, his lobby, his hallways, his rules. And rule number 1, know your place. Every morning at 5:45 a.m., before the lawyers, before the accountants, before Greg Hendricks even rolled out of bed, a quiet woman parked an old Honda Civic in the service lot behind the building. Tanya Brooks. Gray custodial uniform. Name badge clipped to her chest. Just Tanya. No last name, no title. Just a first name, like she was furniture. She entered through the service entrance, changed in the basement locker room, pulled her hair back, laced up her work shoes. Inside her locker, taped to the door, a small photo of an older black woman with sharp, knowing eyes. Her grandmother, Alma Brooks. Nobody knew about that photo. Nobody asked. Tanya moved through the building like a ghost, emptying trash before sunrise, polishing the lobby glass while the city was still dark, restocking soap dispensers, wiping down elevator buttons, scrubbing bathroom tiles on her hands and knees. By the time the first tenant walked in at 8 a.m. with a latte and a laptop bag, every surface was spotless. Every trash can was empty. Every mirror was clean. And not one of them wondered who did it. But Tanya noticed them. She noticed everyone. She knew the accountant on the 4th floor, Phil Cantwell, took his coffee black and always said good morning. She knew the receptionist was going through a divorce and hid it behind a smile. She knew the young paralegal on the 7th floor had just gotten engaged. She remembered birthdays. She asked about kids. She listened. Most tenants liked her. Some adored her. A few didn't even see her. And that was fine, because Tanya wasn't here to be seen. She was here to watch. Now, Greg Hendricks ran the building the way a prison warden runs a cell block. Tenants treated like VIPs. He shook their hands, held elevator doors, asked about their weekends. Office staff? Tolerated, useful, replaceable. Custodial crew? Invisible. Less than invisible. Inconvenient. But not all custodial workers were treated equally, and that's where things got ugly. Scott Brennan, late 20s, white, worked the morning shift. Greg treated him like a buddy. "Hey, Scott, take your time today, man. You earned it." First name, eye contact, a pat on the shoulder now and then. Tanya? "Hey, Mop lady. Denise Lawson, another black janitor, late 30s, single mother, been there 2 years. Greg called her the cleaning girl. Never Denise, never Ms. Lawson, just the cleaning girl. Like she was an object in a supply closet. He once made Denise re-clean an entire floor because he found one smudge on one window, then stood over her the whole time with his arms crossed, timing her. He banned Tanya from the main elevator. Tenants don't want to ride up with a mop bucket. Scott used the same elevator every day. Nobody said a word. He timed Tanya's bathroom breaks. 7 minutes once. He waited outside the door, then reprimanded her in front of the mail carrier. 7 minutes? You think you're on vacation? And the worst part? Nobody stopped it. Nobody filed a report. Nobody said, "Hey, that's not right." The tenants looked away. The staff looked down. And Greg kept going, because silence is permission. But there was one thing Greg never noticed. One thing nobody noticed. Every night after her shift, Tanya didn't go home to a small apartment. She didn't ride the bus. She didn't count coins for groceries. She drove her old Honda Civic 3 miles across town, pulled through a private gate, and parked in front of a house that cost more than Greg Hendricks would make in 5 lifetimes. But that part of the story? That comes later. Now let me take you back. Before the mop. Before that moment in the lobby. Because what Greg did that morning, that wasn't the beginning. That was the explosion. The fuse had been burning for weeks. And it started with a wallet. A Tuesday morning, a young woman from the tech startup on the 9th floor walked into Greg's office, panicking. "My wallet's gone. I left it on my desk last night and now it's not there." Greg didn't check the security cameras, didn't ask the front desk, didn't walk up to the 9th floor to look around, didn't even consider the possibility that the woman might have misplaced it herself. He went straight to Tanya. She was restocking paper towels in the 4th floor bathroom when he appeared in the doorway. Arms crossed, jaw tight, eyes full of accusation before he even opened his mouth. "Where is it?" Tanya looked up. "Where is what?" "Don't play dumb with me. A wallet went missing on the 9th floor. You cleaned that floor last night. So I'm asking you one more time. Where is it?" "I cleaned it, yes. I didn't take anything." Greg stepped inside, let the door swing half shut behind him. His voice dropped. Not softer, just meaner. "Empty your pockets." Tanya set down the paper towels, looked at him steadily. "I'm not going to do that, Mr. Hendricks." His neck went red. His jaw clenched. "Fine. Then we're going downstairs. You're opening your locker. Right now. Move." He didn't walk behind her. He walked beside her, gripping her arm near the elbow, steering her like a prisoner. Not through the service hallway, through the main hallway. Past 2 maintenance workers who stopped mid-conversation to stare. Past Scott Brennan, who looked at the floor and said nothing. Past Denise Lawson, who pressed herself flat against the wall. Everyone saw it. A black woman being marched to the basement by her white manager. Like a criminal being taken in. In the locker room, Greg stood over Tanya while she opened her locker. Everything out. All of it. She removed her jacket, her lunch bag, her purse, a small umbrella, a worn paperback novel. Greg snatched her purse, dumped the contents onto the bench. Lip balm, a phone charger, $3 in change, a grocery list in neat handwriting. No wallet. He opened her lunch bag. A sandwich, an apple, a bottle of water. No wallet. He turned to her cleaning cart and tore everything off the shelves. Spray bottles, rags, gloves, trash bags, all of it. thrown onto the concrete floor like evidence at a crime scene. No wallet. Greg stared at the mess, then stared at Tanya. Didn't apologize, didn't say a word, just turned and walked out. Left her standing there with her belongings dumped across a basement floor. 20 minutes later, the young woman found her wallet in her car. She told Greg. He shrugged. Great. He never told Tanya, never walked back down, never said, I was wrong. Not a word, like it never happened. Tanya repacked her locker alone, folded her jacket, put her lip balm back in her purse, picked the rags up off the concrete one by one, placed each spray bottle back on the cart shelf. Denise stood in the doorway, eyes wet, hands trembling. Tanya, I'm so sorry. Tanya looked up, smiled softly. It's okay, Denise. But it wasn't okay, and they both knew it. That was week 1. Week 2 got worse. Thursday morning. The lobby was packed. 8:15 a.m., peak traffic. Tenants pouring in with briefcases and coffee cups, chatting about meetings, tapping their phones. The usual morning rush. A man from the 6th floor set his latte on the front desk to sign in. His elbow knocked the cup. Coffee spilled everywhere, across the counter, down the front panel, pooling across the marble floor. Greg saw it happen. He was standing 15 feet away, watched the cup tip, watched the coffee spread, watched the man who spilled it step back and laugh nervously. But when Tanya arrived with the mop and bucket, he didn't say a word to the man. He pointed at her. This right here is what I'm talking about. He raised his voice so the entire lobby could hear. The floors are supposed to be non-slip. Were they even mopped this morning? Were they? Tanya, calm. I mopped at 5:45, Mr. Hendricks. The floor was dry. A cup was knocked. Did I ask you what happened? Did I ask? I don't want excuses. I want results. She went quiet. Get on your knees and clean it up. Now. And do it right this time. Tanya knelt down, in front of everyone. 15, maybe 20 people watching. In her gray uniform, on her hands and knees, wiping another man's spilled coffee off marble, while Greg stood directly over her, arms crossed, shaking his head slowly, like a master looking down at a servant who could never get anything right. Phil Cantwell stepped out from the elevator line. Greg, come on. I saw what happened. Someone knocked their coffee over. It's not her fault. Mind your business, Phil. Phil opened his mouth, then closed it, walked away without another word. Nobody else spoke up. 20 people in that lobby, and the only sound was Tanya's rag squeaking against marble. She finished, stood up, wrung out the rag, pushed her cart away. Her knees were wet. Her hands were steady. Her face showed nothing. But Denise, watching from the hallway, couldn't hold it together. She walked into the supply closet, closed the door behind her, and cried for 10 minutes. That was Thursday. The following Tuesday, everything broke. A pipe burst on the 6th floor. Not a small leak, a full rupture. Water cascading through the ceiling, flooding the 5th floor hallway, soaking carpet tiles, dripping into electrical panels. This was not a custodial issue. This was infrastructure. The pipe had been flagged for repair 3 weeks earlier, submitted directly to Greg's desk with a signed work order from the building engineer. Greg buried the request to save budget. The pipe corroded. The pipe burst. His fault, entirely. But that's not what he told anyone. He stormed onto the 5th floor, shoes splashing through standing water, and found Tanya and Denise already there. Tanya had the wet vacuum running. Denise was laying towels near office doors to protect the carpet. They were already handling it, without being asked, without being told. Greg didn't say thank you. He said, "What the hell happened? How did you two let this happen?" Tanya, over the vacuum noise. "It's a burst pipe, Mr. Hendricks. Facilities needs to—" "Don't tell me what facilities needs. You should have caught this weeks ago. Pipe maintenance isn't part of custodial duties. I decide what's part of your job. I decide what you do in this building." He stepped closer, face dark red, vein pulsing at his temple, fists balled at his sides. "You're useless, both of you, completely, absolutely useless." He grabbed the mop from the supply cart, shoved it hard into Tanya's hands. "Here, for once in your miserable life, do something useful." Tanya took the mop, began working. Calm, quiet, not a word, not a flinch. And that's what broke him. Her calm, her silence, her absolute refusal to crack. Every insult, every accusation, every humiliation he had thrown at this woman. And she just stood there, steady, unbreakable. It drove him out of his mind. He snatched the mop back out of her hands. "You can't even hold a mop right. Can't do one single damn thing right." And then he threw it. Not tossed, not dropped, threw it, full force, from 4 feet away. The metal handle hit her collarbone first, then cracked against her shoulder. She stumbled backward into the wall. The mop clattered across the wet floor and slid into the baseboard. The hallway went dead silent. Water dripped from the ceiling. Nobody breathed. Denise gasped, both hands over her mouth, tears already falling. Phil Cantwell stood frozen in his doorway, coffee cup halfway to his lips. "Greg, that is assault. I just watched you throw that at her." Greg turned, didn't blink. It slipped. She was standing too close. "It didn't slip. You threw it. I saw the whole thing." "Stay in your lane, Phil. This is a staffing matter." He turned back to Tanya. She was still against the wall, left hand pressed to her shoulder, the skin underneath already swelling red. "If you can't handle this job," Greg said, straightening his tie like nothing happened, "there are 100 people who'd love your spot. Get back to work." He walked away, shoes splashing, back straight, didn't look back, not once. Tanya stood there for one moment, eyes closed, breathing slow. Then she opened her eyes, bent down, picked up the mop, and went back to work. No words, no tears, no reaction, just the quiet sound of a mop moving across a wet floor. And in the corner of the ceiling, a small red light, blinking, steady, patient. A security camera, recording everything. Now, you'd think after throwing a mop at a woman in front of witnesses, Greg Hendricks would slow down, pull back, maybe even panic a little. No, he got worse, because that's how people like Greg work. They don't stop when they cross the line. They erase the line. They pretend it was never there. And then they go further. 2 days after the mop incident, Greg called Tanya into his office, closed the door, sat behind his desk with his hands folded, like a judge about to pass sentence. "We have a problem." Tanya stood across from him, hands at her sides, calm, waiting. A laptop went missing from a vacant office on the 8th floor. Company property, expensive. And guess who was the only person scheduled to clean that floor the night it disappeared? He paused, let the silence sit. "You." Tanya didn't flinch. I cleaned that floor. I didn't take anything. You can check the cameras. Greg leaned back, smiled, the kind of smile that made your skin crawl. Funny you mentioned cameras. The one on the 8th floor was down for maintenance that night. He tilted his head. Convenient, right? I didn't take any laptop, Mr. Hendricks. Well, I've already filed an incident report, and I've spoken with our regional director, Helen Garrett. She fully supports my decision to escalate this. He leaned forward. So here's what's going to happen. I'm recommending a formal investigation, and depending on how that goes, I may be calling the police. He let that word hang in the air. Police. Unless you'd like to make this easier on yourself and just tell me where it is. Tanya looked at him for a long time. Then she said, quietly, "There is no laptop, Mr. Hendricks." She was right. There was no laptop. There had never been a laptop. The office on the 8th floor had been vacant for 2 months. Empty desk, empty shelves, nothing in it but dust. Greg made the whole thing up, fabricated the accusation from thin air. And the camera on the 8th floor? It was never down. It had been rerouted to a secondary server during a system upgrade, an upgrade Tanya had quietly authorized herself 2 months earlier. The footage existed, and it showed exactly what the room contained the night Tanya cleaned it. Nothing. Because there was nothing to steal. But Greg didn't know that. He sat behind his desk, grinning, thinking he had her trapped. Tanya said nothing more. She turned and walked out. In the hallway, she stopped, took one slow breath, then kept walking. After that, Greg didn't just escalate. He began to dismantle her, piece by piece, day by day, systematically. He removed Tanya from every tenant-facing floor. No more lobby, no more offices, no more hallways where people might see her and say good morning. Instead, he assigned her exclusively to the places nobody ever went. The parking garage, oil stains, exhaust fumes, concrete dust. The dumpster enclosure, rotting food, flies, the smell of decay and the summer heat. The basement utility rooms. No windows, no ventilation, just pipes and shadows and silence. He told the other custodial staff to stay away from her. She's under investigation. Keep your distance unless you want to be included in this. One by one, people stopped talking to Tanya. Not because they believed Greg, because they were afraid. Then he revoked her break room access, put a note on the door, restricted to employees in good standing. Everyone knew who that was aimed at. Tanya ate lunch alone, in the basement, sitting on an overturned plastic bucket, a sandwich on her knee, water bottle on the floor. While upstairs, Greg walked the hallways, praising Scott Brennan in front of everyone. "Scott, buddy, great work on the 3rd floor today. That's what professionalism looks like." He said it loud enough for every custodial worker to hear, loud enough for Tanya to hear, 2 floors down, sitting on a bucket. Denise tried to join Tanya for lunch one afternoon, carried her food down to the basement, and sat next to her on an empty crate. 5 minutes later, Greg appeared at the door. "Lawson, I didn't assign you to the basement. Get back upstairs, now." Denise looked at Tanya. Tanya gave her a small nod. "Go." Denise left, eyes down, fists clenched. They couldn't even eat together anymore. Then came the final move. Greg called Tanya into his office one more time. This time, he had 3 documents spread across his desk like playing cards. Document 1, a write-up for chronic tardiness. It claimed Tanya had been late 5 times in the past month. Every single entry was fabricated. Lobby security footage, which Greg didn't control, would later confirm Tanya arrived early every single day. Not once late. Not once. Document 2, a write-up for insubordination. It cited the pipe burst incident, alleging Tanya refused a direct instruction and argued with management in front of tenants. Document 3. A write-up for suspected theft. The laptop. The laptop that never existed. 3 lies. Typed up. Signed by Greg Hendricks. Countersigned by Helen Garrett at Steel Point's regional office. Then he slid a 4th piece of paper across the desk. A termination letter. Sign it. Walk out quietly. Keep whatever dignity you have left. Tanya looked at the letter, then looked at Greg. Or, he continued, leaning back with his arms behind his head, I move forward with the theft investigation. I call the police, and you walk out of here in handcuffs instead. He smiled. Your choice. Tanya stood still. The room was quiet. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead. She asked one question. Just one. Calm, quiet, almost gentle. Is this really how you want this to end, Mr. Hendricks? Greg laughed, actually laughed, leaned forward and said, What are you going to do about it? Hire a lawyer? With what money? You make $12 an hour, sweetheart. You can barely afford that sandwich you eat on your little bucket. Tanya looked at him for 3 more seconds. Then she picked up the termination letter, set it back on his desk, unsigned, and walked out without another word. Greg called after her. You've got until Friday. After that, I'm calling the cops. She didn't turn around. That night, Tanya didn't drive to a small apartment, didn't take a bus, didn't count coins at a kitchen table. She drove her old Honda Civic through the city, past the downtown lights, into the hills on the east side of town, and pulled through a wrought iron gate onto a private driveway lined with magnolia trees. The house at the end of that driveway had 6 bedrooms, a library, a pool, and a view of the entire city skyline. This was Tanya Brooks' home. She sat at a mahogany desk in her home office. Behind her, framed photos on the wall. Her grandmother Alma breaking ground on a building in 1974. Her family at a charity gala. Her own MBA diploma from the Wharton School of Business. A shelf of real estate industry awards with her name engraved on every one. She picked up the phone and called Reginald Adams. Reggie, her personal attorney. Family friend for 30 years. She told him everything, methodically, precisely. Every incident, every date, every word, the verbal abuse, the wallet search, the lobby humiliation, the mop throw, the fabricated laptop theft, the isolation, the basement, the bucket, the fake write-ups, the termination threat, and the phone call, the one Greg made to Helen Garrett 3 weeks ago, laughing, saying he'd replace Tanya and Denise with people who actually work, maybe someone who speaks English this time. That call was recorded on the audio-enabled security system Tanya had authorized in every management office. 2 months ago. Reggie listened to all of it. Then he said, You have more than enough. Criminal, civil, EEOC, all of it. When do you want to move? Tanya didn't hesitate. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., in the lobby. I want every person in that building to see it. Silence on the line. Then Reggie said, I'll have everything ready. Tanya hung up, opened a folder on her laptop desktop. The label read, Ridgecrest Commerce Center, Ownership Documents. Inside, the deed, the LLC registration, the title certificate, all under one name. Alma Legacy Holdings, LLC. Sole managing member, Tanya Brooks. She looked at the photo of her grandmother on the desk. Alma Brooks. The woman who cleaned other people's offices at night so she could buy buildings during the day. The woman who taught her granddaughter one rule above all others. You don't know who a man really is until he thinks no one important is watching. Tanya picked up her phone one more time, texted Denise, "Come to work tomorrow. Wear something nice underneath your uniform. Trust me." Denise replied with a confused emoji. Then, "Okay?" Tanya set the phone down, looked out the window at the city lights below. Tomorrow, Greg Hendricks would find out exactly who he'd been talking to for 3 months, and it would be the worst morning of his life. Wednesday morning, 8:55 a.m. The lobby of Ridgecrest Commerce Center was alive. Peak traffic. Tenants pouring through the glass doors with briefcases and coffee. The receptionist answering phones. The security guard nodding good morning. And there was Greg Hendricks, standing by the front desk in his best blazer, chest puffed out, barking orders like he owned the place. "If any of the cleaning crew comes through this lobby before 10, send them straight back downstairs. Steel Point's regional director is visiting today. I don't want a single mop bucket in sight. Understood?" The receptionist nodded. "Yes, Mr. Hendricks." Greg straightened his tie, checked his reflection in the lobby glass, smiled at himself. King of the building, master of his kingdom. Then the front doors opened, and Tanya Brooks walked in. But not the Tanya he knew. No gray uniform, no name badge, no mop, no bucket. She was wearing a tailored navy suit, silk blouse, heels, pearl earrings. Her hair was styled. Her back was straight. She carried a leather portfolio under her arm, like a woman who had walked into 1,000 boardrooms. Behind her, Reginald Adams, three-piece suit, briefcase in one hand, expression carved from stone. Behind him, a paralegal carrying a banker's box of documents, and a locksmith in a work uniform, tool bag over his shoulder. 4 people, walking in formation, walking with purpose. The lobby noticed. Conversations dropped to whispers. Heads turned. People stepped aside without knowing why, just instinct. Something was happening. Greg saw her from across the lobby. He squinted, tilted his head. For a second, he didn't recognize her. Then he did, and he laughed. "Well, well, look at you." He walked toward her, grinning. "Mop lady got herself a costume. What is this, a court date? DUI hearing?" He looked her up and down. "Doesn't matter what you put on, sweetheart. You're still the same person who couldn't clean a toilet right." Tanya didn't stop walking, didn't slow down, didn't smile, didn't blink. She walked directly to the front desk. The lobby went quiet. Not whisper quiet, silent. She opened the leather portfolio, removed a single document, placed it on the counter. Then she turned to face Greg Hendricks. "Mr. Hendricks?" Her voice was steady, clear, not loud. She didn't need to be loud. "My name is Tanya Brooks. I am the sole owner of this building." Greg's smile froze. "Every floor, every office, every elevator you told me I wasn't allowed to ride, every hallway you humiliated me in, every bathroom you timed me in, the parking garage you banished me to, the dumpster enclosure, the basement where you made me eat lunch on a bucket." She paused, let the words settle. "I own all of it." Greg's face drained of color. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. He looked at the document on the counter, the deed and title certificate for Ridgecrest Commerce Center, registered to Alma Legacy Holdings, LLC. Below the company name, in clear black ink, Tanya Brooks, sole managing member and owner. He shook his head. No. The owner is some LLC, some company. You're just..." I am the LLC, Mr. Hendricks. I have been working in this building for 3 months, evaluating how my property is managed, how my tenants are served, how my employees are treated. She took one step closer. And what I found was you. Reggie stepped forward, placed a second document on the counter, a formal letter on legal letterhead. He addressed Greg directly. Mr. Hendricks, this letter constitutes immediate termination of Steel Point Property Group's management contract for this building, effective right now. The grounds include documented racial discrimination, workplace harassment, physical assault, fabrication of employee records, and retaliation. He set down a USB drive next to the letter. This contains security footage of every incident, including your phone call with Helen Garrett on April 14th, in which you used racially derogatory language and discussed the unlawful termination of 2 employees. Greg's knees buckled. He grabbed the edge of the front desk to steady himself. A copy has already been sent to Ms. Garrett, to Steel Point's corporate office, and to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. The lobby was frozen. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. 30 people standing still, watching a man's world collapse in real time. Greg tried to speak. His voice cracked. Ms. Brooks, if I had known who you were, I never would have. Tanya cut him off. Not with anger, with something worse. Calm. That's exactly the problem, Mr. Hendricks. She looked him in the eyes. You shouldn't need to know who I am to treat me like a human being. Silence. You searched my locker for a wallet that was in someone's car. You accused me of stealing a laptop that never existed. You threw a mop at my body. You forced me into the basement and took away my break room. You made me eat on a bucket. You wrote fake disciplinary reports and threatened me with handcuffs. She paused. And through all of it, you were smiling, because you believed I was nobody, that I had no power, that no one would ever listen to me. One more step forward. That is exactly the kind of person who should never have power over anyone. Dead silence. Then, from near the elevators, Phil Cantwell started clapping. Slow, steady. One person. Then another tenant joined. Then another. Then a wave. 10, 15, 20 people applauding in the lobby of Ridgecrest Commerce Center. Denise Lawson walked through the front door. She saw Tanya in the navy suit. Her mouth fell open. Her hand went to her chest. Tears spilled before she could stop them. Tanya caught her eye across the lobby, gave her one firm, warm nod. The locksmith walked past Greg without a word, headed toward the management office, began changing the locks. Greg watched him go, then looked back at Tanya, then at Reggie, then at the crowd of people staring at him. He had nothing left. No authority, no title, no office, no power. He was just a man standing in someone else's building. And for the first time in 3 months, he had nothing to say. Greg Hendricks did what every bully does when the ground disappears beneath them. He begged. Ms. Brooks, please, let's talk about this. Let's go somewhere private and just talk. Tanya didn't move. You didn't take me somewhere private when you marched me through the hallway to search my locker. You didn't take me somewhere private when you screamed at me in the lobby. Say what you need to say, right here. Greg's eyes darted around the room. Every face was watching him, some with shock, some with disgust, a few with their phones out recording. He tried flattery first. I've always respected you, Ms. Brooks. I Honestly, I always saw something special in, you called me Mop Lady. You said you could train a dog to work faster than me. You told me I disgusted you. Try again. He tried excuses. The mop, that was, look, the pipe burst. I was under pressure. Steel Point had been writing me about costs, and Helen was threatening to cut my budget, and I snapped. It was a bad day. One bad day. Reggie stepped in. Your security footage shows a pattern spanning 3 months, Mr. Hendricks. That's not one bad day. Greg tried blame shifting. It's the culture. Steel Point, they set the tone. Helen told me to run a tight ship, keep labor costs down, cut the fat. I was just doing what they... Helen Garrett is named in the lawsuit as well, Reggie said, along with Steel Point Property Group as an organization. So that defense won't help you either. Greg's composure crumbled. His chin trembled. His voice dropped to something small and broken. Please, I have a family. I have a mortgage. I have 2 kids in school. If this goes public, I can't. Tanya looked at him. For the first time, there was something in her eyes. Not sympathy, not satisfaction. Something heavier. Denise Lawson has a family too, Mr. Hendricks. A daughter, 8 years old. And every single morning for the past 2 years, Denise came to this building terrified. Terrified that today would be the day you finally fired her. Terrified that if she lost this job, she'd lose her health insurance. Terrified that her daughter would go without. She paused. Did you ever think about that? Even once? Greg said nothing. His eyes dropped to the floor. That's what I thought. The lobby doors opened. Officer Weathers walked in. Tan uniform, badge catching the light, radio crackling on his shoulder. Reggie met him halfway, handed him a folder, the formal criminal complaint. Inside, a printed summary of every incident, a USB drive containing security footage and audio recordings, copies of the fabricated disciplinary documents. The charges include assault and battery, filing fraudulent employment records, workplace harassment, and racial discrimination, Reggie said. All supporting evidence is in this packet. Officer Weathers reviewed the summary, flipped through 2 pages, looked up at Greg. Mr. Hendricks, I need you to step outside with me, please. Greg's face went white. Officer, there's been a misunderstanding. She was my employee. I was just managing my team. That's all this is. Weathers looked at Tanya, then back at Greg. Sir, she's not your employee. She's your landlord, and she's pressing charges. Let's step outside, now. Greg opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out. Weathers took his arm, gently but firmly, walked him toward the lobby doors. At the security desk, Greg's access badge was unclipped from his belt, set on the counter. His name stared up at the ceiling. Greg Hendricks, building manager. Not anymore. The glass doors opened. Greg walked through them. The same doors he'd strutted through every morning for 3 years, like he owned the world. Now he was leaving with nothing. No badge, no keys, no title, no power. Just a police officer's hand on his arm and 30 pairs of eyes on his back. The doors closed behind him. The lobby exhaled. And then Tanya turned to Denise. Denise was standing near the wall, tears running down her face. Hands clasped together so tight her knuckles were pale. She hadn't moved since she walked in. She hadn't said a word. Tanya walked to her, took both her hands, held them. Your notebook, Tanya said softly. Every date, every incident, every word you wrote down, that's going into the legal case. You were the bravest person in this building, Denise. You documented everything when no one else would. Denise shook her head. I wasn't brave. I was scared every single day. Being scared and still showing up, that is brave. Denise broke. She pulled Tanya into a hug and sobbed into her shoulder. The whole lobby watched. Nobody looked away this time. When Denise pulled back, Tanya addressed the room. Not just the custodial staff, everyone. Steel Point Property Group's contract is terminated as of today. A new management company will be in place within 30 days. During the transition, no custodial employee will lose their job. Pay will be reviewed. Conditions will change. She looked at the custodial workers standing along the back wall, some still in uniform, some with tears in their eyes. The break room is open to everyone, effective immediately. And from this point forward, every person in this building gets called by their name, not mop lady, not cleaning girl, not hey you, their name. She turned to the full lobby one last time. This building runs because of the people you never see, the ones who arrive before you and leave after you. They deserve dignity. They always did. Nobody clapped this time. It was quieter than that, deeper. People just nodded. Some wiped their eyes. A few looked at the custodial staff standing along the wall, really looked at them, maybe for the first time. And in the silence, you could almost hear something shift, not just in the building, in the room. Now, in most stories, that would be the ending. The villain gets exposed, the hero stands tall, credits roll. But this isn't most stories, because what happened in that lobby? That was just the beginning. The real consequences, those came next. And they came hard. Within 48 hours, Reggie Adams filed a civil lawsuit on behalf of Tanya Brooks and Denise Lawson against Greg Hendricks individually and Steel Point Property Group as an organization. The charges were extensive: racial discrimination, hostile work environment, assault and battery, intentional infliction of emotional distress, retaliation, and fraud. Specifically, the fabrication of employee disciplinary records with the intent to terminate. The city's Equal Employment Opportunity Office opened a formal investigation into Steel Point's management practices, not just at Ridgecrest, across all 23 properties they managed. And that's when the floodgates opened, because Greg Hendricks was not an isolated case. Investigators discovered that at 3 other Steel Point managed buildings, custodial workers of color had been terminated using nearly identical tactics: fabricated write-ups, invented theft accusations, reassignment to degrading work areas, forced resignations under threat. The playbook was the same, only the names were different. Complaints had been filed at 4 properties over the past 3 years. Every single one was buried, dismissed, filed away and forgotten. The regional directors, including Helen Garrett, signed off on every termination without conducting a single investigation. One former janitor from a Steel Point building across town came forward publicly, a black man in his late 50s named Wallace. He told reporters his story, and it sounded like he was reading from Tanya's script. Accused of stealing tools from a maintenance closet, locker searched, reassigned to the basement, written up 3 times in 1 month for offenses that never happened, fired on a Tuesday. No severance, no explanation, just a cardboard box and a security escort to the parking lot. He wasn't the only one. 4 more former employees came forward within the week, then 6 more, then 9. The pattern wasn't a crack in the system. It was the system. Helen Garrett was placed on administrative leave the day after the lawsuit was filed. Her recorded phone call with Greg, the one where she laughed and agreed to replace Tanya and Denise with people who actually work, maybe someone who speaks English this time, became the centerpiece of every news segment that followed. And there were a lot of news segments. Claire Donovan, an investigative journalist at the city's largest news station, got the security footage first. A sympathetic employee at Steel Point's corporate office leaked it to her anonymously. She ran a 3-part series on the evening news. Each segment opened with footage. Night 1. Greg throwing the mop, the metal handle cracking against Tanya's shoulder, her stumbling into the wall, then picking up the mop and going back to work without a word. Night 2. Greg marching Tanya through the hallway, the locker room, her belongings dumped on the floor. Greg walking out without looking back. Night 3. The audio. Greg on the phone with Helen Garrett, laughing, mocking, planning. His voice casual and confident. The voice of a man who believed no one would ever hear him. The footage went viral within hours. Not thousands of views, millions. Shared across every platform, reposted, reacted to, commented on, stitched, quoted, screamed about. The clip of the mop throw alone hit 12 million views in 3 days. The audio clip trended nationally. Hashtags exploded. Opinion pieces filled every news site in the country. Tanya gave one interview, just one. Calm, measured, powerful. She talked about her grandmother Alma, the woman who cleaned offices at night and bought buildings by day. She talked about why she goes undercover in her own properties. She talked about Denise, about the notebook, about the bucket in the basement. She said, "I didn't go undercover to catch anyone. I went undercover to understand. And what I understood was that the systems built to protect workers were protecting the people who abused them." The interview was shared 4 million times in a week. Steel Point's corporate office released a statement, 4 sentences, generic. "We are committed to an inclusive workplace and take these allegations seriously. We have initiated an internal review." The internet tore it apart within minutes. Allegations. The footage was right there. There was nothing alleged about a mop hitting a woman's collarbone. Then came the courtroom. Criminal case first. Greg Hendricks was charged with simple assault, filing fraudulent employment documents, and criminal harassment. He hired a defense attorney, pleaded not guilty. That lasted 11 days. After the prosecution submitted the security footage, the audio recordings, Phil Cantwell's sworn witness statement, Denise Lawson's documented notebook, and the testimony of 3 additional former Steel Point employees, Greg's attorney advised him to change his plea. He pleaded guilty. All counts. The judge sentenced him to 18 months probation, mandatory anger management and racial sensitivity counseling, 250 hours of community service, to be completed at a nonprofit organization serving underserved communities. A permanent restraining order banning him from Ridgecrest Commerce Center and all properties owned by Alma Legacy Holdings. Greg stood in the courtroom with his head down. He didn't speak. His wife sat in the 3rd row. She didn't look at him. Civil case next. Steel Point Property Group settled before trial for a substantial sum, the exact amount sealed by the court, but sources close to the case described it as significant. The settlement terms included mandatory anti-discrimination training company-wide, an independent oversight committee to review all employee terminations going forward, and the reinstatement and full back pay of every employee terminated under similar circumstances at other Steel Point properties. Helen Garrett was fired by Steel Point's board of directors 2 weeks after the settlement. She was subsequently sued by 3 former employees at other buildings she oversaw. She settled all 3 cases privately. She has not returned to the property management industry. Greg Hendricks' name became permanently attached to the footage. A Google search of his name returned the mop throw clip as the first result, then the audio, then the news coverage, then the court records. He deleted every social media account, moved out of the city. Last anyone heard, he was working as a stock clerk at a hardware store in a small town 4 hours away. No management title, no authority, no one reporting to him. The industry didn't forget either. His name became a case study, literally. 2 universities added the Ridgecrest incident to their business ethics curriculum. But Tanya wasn't done. She took the momentum from the case and built something permanent. She launched the Alma Brooks Workplace Dignity Initiative, a nonprofit foundation providing free legal representation, documentation training, and advocacy resources for low-wage workers facing discrimination and harassment on the job. She implemented a new management model across every Alma Legacy Holdings property: annual undercover evaluations, anonymous reporting hotlines with guaranteed non-retaliation protections, mandatory equity training, not a one-day seminar, but ongoing quarterly education, pay audits to eliminate wage gaps, and custodial staff included in every building-wide event, communication, and recognition program. The City Council took notice. Responding to the public pressure generated by the case, they passed a local ordinance, informally called the Alma Brooks Act, strengthening workplace protections for custodial and service industry workers, including mandatory access to security footage for all employees involved in workplace disputes. Tanya testified before the council. Standing at the podium in the same navy suit she'd worn the morning of the reveal, she said one sentence that made the evening news. "My grandmother cleaned buildings so she could buy them. I clean buildings so I can protect the people inside them." The chamber gave her a standing ovation. So, where are they now? Tanya Brooks still owns and operates her family's real estate portfolio, 14 properties. She still goes undercover, still puts on the uniform, still shows up at 5:45 a.m. in buildings where nobody knows her name. When people ask why, she says, "I'll stop when I stop finding problems. I haven't stopped yet." Denise Lawson was promoted to Custodial Operations Director at Ridgecrest. She manages the entire cleaning team. She makes sure every new hire knows 2 things on day 1. Your name matters here, and you will never eat lunch on a bucket. Her old notebook, the one she filled with dates and incidents when she was too scared to speak, sits framed on her office desk. Not decoration, a reminder. Phil Cantwell renewed his lease for 5 more years. In a follow-up interview, he said, "I saw what was happening. I spoke up once or twice, but not nearly enough. Tanya gave me a second chance to be on the right side. I won't waste it." Helen Garrett was fired, sued by 3 former employees, settled all 3, left the industry for good. Steel Point Property Group lost 11 contracts. Their CEO resigned. The company is under court-mandated restructuring. And Greg Hendricks finished his probation, finished his community service, at a shelter serving the same kind of people he used to look down on. Moved to a small town 4 hours away, works at a hardware store, stocks shelves, sweeps floors. He doesn't manage anyone. The last thing he said publicly was in the courtroom. The judge asked if he had anything to say. Greg stood there for a long time. Then, "No, Your Honor." 2 words, the quietest he'd ever been. Funny how that works. So here's what I want you to take from this. Respect is not conditional. It doesn't change based on someone's uniform, their paycheck, or their skin color. People deserve it by being human. Period. Power doesn't create character. It reveals it. Greg wasn't cruel because he was stressed. He was cruel because he believed no one important was watching. And silence is not neutral. Every person who walked through that lobby, who heard the insults, who saw the mop fly, and kept walking, inaction isn't innocence. It's permission. The lesson isn't be nice because you might get caught. The lesson is be decent because it's the only version of yourself worth being. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever watched someone get humiliated at work because of their race, their title, the uniform they wore, and said nothing? Or maybe you spoke up. Maybe you were the Denise who documented everything in silence. Or maybe you were the Tanya, absorbing it all day after day without a word. Whatever your story, drop it in the comments. I read every single one. If this hit you, share it. Send it to someone going through this right now, someone who feels invisible. If you're new here, this is what we do. Every week, stories about people who were underestimated and pushed to the edge. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And remember, every time someone cleans a floor or hands you your coffee, you're looking at a full human being with a full life, a full story. You never know who you're talking to. So treat every person with respect, not because they might be somebody, because they already are.
You want to know who someone really is? Don't watch how they treat their boss. Don't watch how they treat rich people. Don't watch how they act when the cameras are on. Watch how they treat the person who cleaned their floor, the person who emptied their trash, the person they think has no power, no voice, no way to fight back. That's the real them. Everything else is acting, because power doesn't make you cruel. It does give you the permission to show the cruelty that was always there. A good person with power protects people. A bad person with power destroys them. The power didn't change who they are. It just took the mask off. So, if you are in a position of power right now over anyone, even one person, ask yourself, how do I treat them when nobody's watching? Am I the same person in the private that I am in the public? Because the version of you that comes out when you think nobody important is looking, that's the version that matters. That's the one people remember. Like, share and subscribe. Real stories, real justice every week. And remember, every person you meet is a full human being with a full story. You don't need to know their story to treat them with respect. You don't need to be decent. That should be enough.